Well, thank you so much for joining us here this evening to talk about the opportunity that is in front of us that we've been undertaking, and that is developing a bicycle and pedestrian master plan for the city of Gary. My name is Wendy Vachey, and as I said, I'm going to be your guide this evening and walk you through our public information forum. So I can see that we have a variety of folks with us. Hopefully we're on Facebook Live as well. I can't see that, but I hope you can see my screen. What is up on the screen is the presentation that we're going to walk through, and I want to be thoughtful about this. We understand that we're virtual here, so I'm going to leave my screen as it is, and along the left-hand side, you can see the presentation and what slide I'm on. So as I walk through this, if you take a note and say, man, there was something really interesting on slide 5, I want to pay attention to that, we can do that. Okay, so that's why I've left it there. And then I'm going to talk more about how these materials are available. So let's go ahead and get going. So just some rules of engagement for tonight's forum. Everyone is muted so that everyone can hear the presentation, and I guess me in particular present this evening. But that is not intended to shush or make sure that folks can't comment and participate. We're asking that where at all possible, if you could use the chat function that is in Zoom, should be down on, you'll see down on the left-hand side, you see your audio and you'll see your video, and then you should be able to see the chat function. And we are monitoring the chat function. We also have various other ways to provide feedback. We have the email. We also have Facebook Live going where you can type in questions. So we're going to do our best as we go forward. If you have a question, put it in the chat. If you had something you'd like to say, put it in chat. Send an email, Facebook Live, and we'll do our best after we get through the presentation to kind of walk through what some of those ideas, thoughts, and questions might be. And you'll find throughout this presentation, we're going to be talking about other ways to participate in the study that we are ongoing now, like I said, of the development of our bicycle and pedestrian master plan. We have a survey, can't wait to tell you more about that. We have a website where all of the information is posted, and including this presentation will be posted, and then social media, which is obviously very popular these days.
I'm right here. Why are you yelling?
So briefly, tonight's agenda, what are we going to do? Okay. We're going to introduce ourselves and kind of the project that we're undertaking so everybody understands. We're going to explain what it is we're doing and why it is important to folks in the city of Gary and elsewhere. We're going to present an overview of what we know and understand and some background information so that everyone has a sense of where we're starting from. We're going to learn more about how you can get involved in what we're doing. We're going to answer questions to the best of our ability via chat, email, survey, etc. And then we're going to prepare for next steps. So who are we? Deb Bacchus with the Gary Redevelopment Department is the project manager for this bicycle and pedestrian master plan. Deb is on the online and on the screen, and will be coming in and out. She's working through some of our Facebook challenges. Greg Jenkins is the planning director for the city of Gary, who is also involved in the project. My name is Wendy Vachey, yours truly, and I'm the project manager. We're the consultant that was selected to help guide this process and eventually produce the plan that we're going to talk more about. We have our local representative, a great team member, Vocart, Jesse Renslow, some of you may know, Gretchen Sipp, who is behind the scenes this evening. They've been helping with community outreach and getting viable and valuable information for our project. And then we also have a consultant by the name of Troyer Group out of South Bend. Jonathan Giels and Michael Reese are with us, and wonderful technical experts, landscape architects and planners who are really going to bring this plan to life for us. So important considerations, basics. We are able to do this project because we got a grant from the Indiana Department of Health. They are providing 50% of the funds for this effort, which is exciting. The State Department of Health is a new and interesting partner, and we're going to talk more about that. The nice thing about this partnership as well is it gives us access to different kind of funding resources for transportation projects. We don't always think about health and transportation in the same vein, but we are now, and we will be doing more so as we move forward. And I can tell you unequivocally that we know that there will be more funding and money on the table from the state, the federal government, and private partners and nonprofits related to health, not just because of COVID, although that is part of it, but because it's a very important topic, and we're seeing more and more funding available for trails and recreational projects and transit than ever before. And generally speaking, the whole purpose of this is to improve access and mobility for all users within the city of Gary and beyond, so that you have access to a safe and connected transportation options. It's a key issue for residents, how you get around, whether you're on bike or you're driving, lots of different ways to get around, but it's really important for economic development. Again, our focus will be bicycle, pedestrian, and transit for everyone. Okay, so where are we starting? You know, in 2019, the city of Gary completed their citywide comprehensive plan. This is something that most communities do about every 10 years and is required by state law. It kind of provides that overarching vision for what the future will be, whether it's for land use or transportation or health and economics. And that's the culmination of that plan in 2019 has led us to today. It had significant public involvement. It was adopted in December of 2019. And in that plan, we identified the need for a bicycle and pedestrian plan because the city didn't have one. And because we identified that need, lo and behold, we were able to submit a grant and get the funding that we need to be here today. So the importance of this is to show the connection between doing planning and getting funding to actually do more work. They are directly related. And without question, our goal here is to build upon the plans that we have now, make them better, get input, and create a realistic, actionable path forward. We're not planning just to plan. We're planning to get things done. So up on the screen, you will also see something of a milestone schedule. I want to give you a sense of where we are and where we're going with this project, so you can also see where you fit in. We started the project in August of 2020, and honestly, because of COVID, it was delayed. We had intended to be started months earlier, but nonetheless, we got things going, we got underway, and we've been working for the last few months to really begin to bring this together. And we're glad to be here this evening. And you can see this is our first public information forum. We do have a community advisory committee that's been put together, a small group of people who are advising us and giving us information on transit and housing, public health, education. It's been really, really great. Some great folks in that, including Glen Johnson, who's on the phone today, as part of that, and the Gary Housing Authority as well as GPTC and others. We've been developing our community bicycle and pedestrian survey that we're going to talk more about. We've been developing a Google class that is very exciting that we want to talk to you about, and just getting a lot of this background information pulled together so that we can present what we know, what we understand, and be able to talk to you more about it. So basics, baseline information in the transportation business, we call this existing conditions, things that we know, right? The city of Gary is over 50 square miles. Its geography, it's a large geography, the largest geographic city in Northwest Indiana. We have a population of approximately 78,000 folks. 80% of these folks are African American or minority. 42% of the land we have in the city is vacant. We also have over 500 miles of sidewalks, which is actually an incredible number. Not all of it is in great condition. We understand that. We have lots of streets in the city, but we don't have a whole lot of bike lanes. And that's something we're going to talk more about. We have 13 miles of open trail and the ability to have a whole lot more. We are looking to expand those segments and create connectivity and fill gaps. We're going to talk more about that. And we have the Gary Public Transportation Corporation bus service, which is the most robust bus service in Northwest Indiana, and they've just been a great partner. So these are some of the things that we're starting with. We also know from the 2019 comprehensive plan that almost 19% of Gary households don't own a car. And this is double that of Lake County and the state of Indiana. That is a significant number. And it tells you a couple of things. Whereas we think of bicycle and pedestrian and transit for recreation, it's also very important. It's how folks get to work or to goods and services, okay, or to school. And so it's important that we look at both, and we're going to be looking more at that traditional transportation as well as health, wellness, and recreation. And lots of folks had Gary Public Transit has had a lot of increase in ridership over the years. Again, 2020 has been an interesting year, but let's not let that set the baseline. We're going to be moving forward in 2021. Okay, we are funded by the State Department of Health partially, and so talking about the community health characteristics is also very important. And we can tell you from our conversations with our community advisory committee that some of these numbers, when they're presented to funders and people who live outside of Gary, are somewhat blown away by some of our statistics. Again, we have a highly low income population. We have 18% of our population is disabled. We have a high poverty rate. We have a high sense of food insecurity, if you've heard the term food deserts, right? And what I would ask you is, where do you grocery shop? And where would you like to grocery shop? If you could put a grocery store in Gary, where would it be? And maybe what would it be? Would it be a Trader Joe's? Would it be an Aldi? Would it be something else? We have a high rate of diabetes, kidney disease, heart disease, and hypertension. Now, these all sound negative. In some ways, they're not good, but it's also important to put forward what the challenges are so that we can provide solutions. There's a direct connection between health and exercise, and this is true for people of all ages and abilities, okay? And that's something else that we're looking at as we move forward with the plan. Right, so you may ask yourself, so how does a bicycle and pedestrian and master plan help anything, right? We have all of these challenges. What can this do for us? Well, this is the essence of our meeting this evening. So we're going to spend the next 20 minutes walking through this with you. Again, we understand we're presenting a lot of information. We're going to make more of this available, maybe jot down some notes, see what slide number I'm on, or again, use the chat feature to give us your thoughts and comments as we go along. Okay, some terms. I don't expect everybody to be a transportation planning expert, but there are terms that we use and ideas that we're going to present. And we want to just give you a snapshot of what those might mean for you, right? So you hear the term transit-oriented development. Think about targeted development around the South Shore stations, for example. We have 3 South Shore stations, one at Clark Road, downtown, and in Miller. As we know, there will be upgrades to the South Shore service called the Double Tracking Project. And really that presents an incredible opportunity to look at those transit stations and how can we make them better? How can we get more services around them? How can we connect more people to them, right? So that they can get on the train and go to places outside of Gary or have people outside of Gary come in. And so this is wonderful and will be transformative over the next couple of years. We have something that we call first and last mile. And again, related back to transit, whether it be the South Shore or think of a bus stop, right? So it's one thing for me to get on a bus or a train, but I've got to get from someplace to get on the bus and the train. And so we tend to look at what we call first mile, last mile. How do I get there? And once I get off, how do I get to my next destination? We know over the last few years that services like Lyft and Uber, and in some places even scooters, are helping people really deal with that first mile, last mile. And we'll talk more about that over the coming months as we develop our plan. Something called Safe Routes to School. This is a federal funding program that is intended to improve walking and biking to schools throughout the country. In 2015, Gary completed a Safe Routes to School plan, not unlike what we are doing here. And we're hoping to upgrade that as we upgrade our bicycle and pedestrian plan so we can prioritize improvements around open schools. ADA and universal design. ADA is the American with Disabilities Act. And basically universal design is designing for everyone. So what if I'm in a wheelchair? What if I'm elderly and trying to get up over a 6-inch curb isn't going to be good for me? What if I'm a kid a small kid with short legs, right? So the idea is we design in mind for everybody, so everybody can use the street or the sidewalk. Not overly complicated to do, but something you need to do with intention when you start looking at your projects. Complete streets and road diets. You're going to hear more about this. These are terms we use all the time, and I will go into a couple slides about that. But one of the important things to understand about complete streets and road diets is they involve using the roads and the what we call right-of-way that we have now in a better way. You know, not all just for cars and trucks, but for everybody. And it helps us because these areas are already dedicated to transportation use. And we'll talk about road diets here in a minute. Maybe we have 4 lanes, travel lanes for traffic, which is, you know, cars and trucks, and maybe we only need 2. Maybe we'd like to retrofit a lane so we can accommodate bikes or paths as we move forward. Tactical urbanism, great interesting term, right? Is an approach that is really community and volunteer oriented and is a grassroots way to kind of get small projects up and running, to test ideas, to see if we like what we might be proposing on a street or within a corridor. And we're going to talk more about that in a few minutes as well. Okay, so just some visuals to help understand what is a complete street. You know, you can see at the top, a complete street is one that is designed and operational for everyone. It prioritizes safety and comfort and access for everybody using the street. So we got folks walking, we have people eating outside, we've got a bike path here, various users, there's even a car. You know, cars are good things, we all use those. And we have a user in a wheelchair that is using a crosswalk. So, you know, sometimes this is the ultimate goal. We don't always start here. We may start with the street and say, what are the incremental changes we can make that might get us here, if that's where the community wants to be. So you can see on the left-hand side at the bottom of the street, kind of a traditional street, you know, built for cars. And then on the right-hand side is, well, what if we start to make it a more complete street? Maybe we improve the sidewalk, right? Maybe we put in green space. Maybe we add a bike lane that helps bring that street more alive for different kinds of users and makes it safer for everyone. Road diet, okay, these are popular in many places and something that we think it may be very useful in the city of Gary. It's kind of the same idea, kind of a continuum. You might start with a road diet and work your way into a complete street, for example. So we're talking about maybe restriping a section of road where we remove at least 1 lane or turn that pavement over for another use like a bike lane, okay? And think about the city of Gary. Think about some of the major arterials that we have that were built for a lot of traffic, vehicle traffic, that no longer is there. Is there a way to better use that pavement? So, for example, on the left-hand side of the screen, you may see a typical 4-lane, right? We see these all throughout the city. And then maybe on the right-hand side, hey, what if we take that same area and we re-envision it? Maybe we keep some area for parking, but we put in a bike lane and maybe we reduce the driving lanes to 1 lane in each direction. Let me say something about road diets and complete streets too, so that I don't neglect to say this. You want to slow down traffic? Road diets and complete streets can very much help that, and they improve safety. Tactical urbanism. I mentioned this earlier, and we really think this is a good fit. And what is this? You know, in essence, we're talking about low-cost changes that can happen at the neighborhood level using paint and other measures to try out ideas, okay? And, you know, this kind of tactical urbanism, these dollars are available through all sorts of different funding sources. And you can see some of the pictures that are on the screen here with the ideas of even volunteers doing some of the painting, right? Hey, we want to try a bike lane. We want to see if that's going to work for us. Maybe for those folks who have been out dining during COVID, anybody been dining outside, you know, maybe had a table out on the sidewalk where it wasn't before, or actually in a parking space that's been converted to outdoor use? Same kind of idea. And Deb, I know that it looks like you're available to speak for a few minutes. Do you want to talk a little bit about this concept and how it might be applied, how you're applying it on Grand Boulevard in Miller?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Yeah, I'm excited about the notion of getting citizens across Gary energized about tactical urbanism as an approach to kind of move towards implementing bicycle and pedestrian friendly projects. And we do have a real example here in Gary. There were 3 groups, volunteer groups in Gary. One is Visit Miller Beach, Friends of Marquette Park, and Access Miller, which came out of the Miller Spotlight Group, who worked with our planning agent to kind of think through how we could reimagine Grand Boulevard and some other areas that connect the downtown area of Miller to and we applied for a grant, $20,000 AARP, to do as Wendy indicated, low cost measure, temporary in nature, and that we'd be using lower cost paint than you typically use on the striping is meant to last for 10 years. This may be a year or 3 years or so. And as you can see, what we're imagining this as being, instead of the 4 lanes we have on the before section of Grand Avenue, we're reimagining as a road diet where we've reduced it down to 2 lanes, one south and one north, a turn lane so you don't get stuck behind somebody, and then bike lanes on either side going north and south as well. This is planned to go live in the spring, taking us from Forest Avenue to 4th Avenue on Grand, and then also doing what's called shared lanes on 4th Avenue to get us over to Lake Street. So that's an example, and very much volunteer oriented, though some restrictions with COVID will keep us from doing as much as we'd like to. Painting some of those stencils, put the bike that show the bike lanes. So I'm excited about this demonstration we'll try out, then replicating it across the city and other neighborhoods who want to try something out as well.
Wonderful. Thanks, Deb. I really appreciate
Wendy.
that. And, and again, different pots of money, right? That was funded by AARP in the Indiana State Department of Health. Again, not where we traditionally go for transportation funds, but the world is changing. And why shouldn't the city of Gary be able to capitalize on all of these opportunities, small, medium, and large? So to that end, let's talk a little bit about big picture, right? So think of regional, right? When we talk about transportation, we always talk about it in the big picture down to the neighborhood level. And here in the city of Gary, all of that matters. So where are we? For example, the map that's in front of you is from the Northwest Indiana Regional Plan Commission's blue and greenway map. And it gives just a perspective of the potential of where Gary sits relative to other trails and bike paths throughout Northwest Indiana. And if you've been on any of these, they're significant, they're interesting, they go through some very beautiful places. So whereas here we are in Gary, we want to connect to those, right? And we want people to connect to us. And so all along Lake Michigan, we're going to talk more about the Marquette Trail, which is an east-west trail connecting Southwest Michigan to Chicago. Part of that is in the city of Gary. And then you can see even other major trails. Look at in Portage, you have that kind of purple, for those of you that can see that dash line that comes through. That was one of the original Rails to Trails project that was thought of many, many years ago and is very much up and running and utilized by a lot of folks. And we'll talk more about the Gary Green Link and some other informative and interesting projects that we're going to have. And of course, even connecting to regional transportation like the South Shore. And again, as I said, we have 3 stations. That's incredibly powerful. So Gary's place in the region remains. And we want to take about the big picture while we think about the city itself and the neighborhood level. So key regional projects, something just to think about because we're going to talk more about them in the months to come. But again, the South Shore improvements, major opportunity. Marquette Trail and getting the trail developed. Incredible partnership going on across Northwest Indiana to make that happen. Good energy behind that. Gary Elevate Trail project. This is a transformative project that is just incubating and envisioned within the city of Gary. If any of you are familiar with the 606 in Chicago or the High Line in New York City, well, Gary Elevate is our equivalent, and we're really excited to begin to talk more about that with you and to get your thoughts on it as we move forward. Again, GPT initiatives are very important in all the work that is going on in the Broadway corridor and the expansion of service, potentially even Grant Street. And then just overall improvement to connectivity, getting around better, making sure that you can use multiple modes to do so. So just again, overarching themes. We are trying to use the existing right-of-way we have and publicly owned property as much as possible to do these projects, because quite frankly, the city doesn't have the money to go out and buy a lot of new property. We have 42% vacant property in the city. Surely we can do more with the roads that we have, the abandoned railroads that we have, and make things better for residents and improve our overall connectivity within the city and outside of the city. So the kind of projects that we're going to walk you through, and it's going to be a series of maps. These are things that already exist that we're looking for feedback on. But we're going to talk about trails and bike lanes, improving those, filling gaps. We're going to talk about complete streets and road diets. We just kind of introduced that, so you know what that's like. Transit-oriented development, again, GPTC, South Shore. And then there's always other projects as well, including making other existing facilities safer and more functional. Okay, so City of Gary, here's our perspective, right? So as we said, we're building on the work from the 2019 comprehensive plan. Chapter 6 of the 2019 comprehensive plan is where the envisioned transportation projects live. This is also where the proposed land use for the city lives in its entirety. Okay, so this is a snapshot. There's a lot going on this slide, but what we want to do is give you an idea of what the land use, aka how land will be used throughout the city, how it already is used, and how some of these projects that we're going to talk about fit in. So for example, you can see across the north end of the map, you see the fuchsia lines there that's kind of dashed and solid. For anybody who's colorblind, it is a dash line, so you'll be able to see it too. But those are the two trails I mentioned. That north-south, east-west, route is the Marquette Trail. You can see where the dash line then comes off the Marquette Trail and dips down, okay, into the Midtown neighborhood and comes up. That's the general location of what we envision to be the Gary Elevate project. That is abandoned rail line that exists within the city and goes through Midtown. Some of you probably know where this is, really interesting down through there. And again, then we have major corridors. Look at Broadway, north to south. The spine of the city always has been, always will be. Looking at improvements there. Right now, the current plan calls for the addition of contiguous bike lanes all the way down Massachusetts to create a north-south connection for bike lanes. Does that make sense? Do folks think that makes sense, or would you like to see something else? Again, transit-oriented development around our stations, and just this idea that we have this incredible grid, and how do we make the grid better, and how do we connect various pieces? Again, north-south, east-west. And we're going to talk more about these. What we've done in the comprehensive plan is, because the city is so big, we take the entire city and we cut it into more manageable neighborhood sections, right? We try to follow the traditional lines of traditional Gary neighborhoods, but you'll see some overlaps on the map as we go forward. We're aware of that. And so, but it's an easier way to orient you now from the city concept down to the individual neighborhood, understanding that many of these projects cross several neighborhoods or across the whole city. And Deborah, is there anything you want to add before I move forward?
I'm fine, thanks. Been great, Wendy.
Okay, great. Okay, so we'll start with Buffington Harbor. Yes, even the most industrial part of the city also has opportunities. In the comp plan, you can see again that east-west route that put a big red circle around it so we could see it. That is the general location of the fully envisioned Marquette Trail extension. And it's a dash line because it's not yet completed. We have a sense of where it's going to go along abandoned rail line and other places, but it hasn't been developed. We're working very hard on this. You can see also that circled there is the South Shore Station at Clark Road or Gary Chicago Airport, depending on what term you use, and that is there. Of course, there may be other opportunities in the future associated with the wonderful resource we have to the very north, which is Lake Michigan. But for now, this gives you a sense of what is kind of envisioned in Buffington Harbor. If you have any ideas, we'd love to hear them. Again, we're going through these quickly, but these slides will be able to be available to you in a variety of ways that you can provide feedback. And we're looking forward to it because we need more ideas. What if I go to the next neighborhood? So we're looking at Brunswick and West Side, again, kind of orienting to the north. There's the Clark Road Station, future transit-oriented development. The dotted green lines are potential trail extensions. And then you can see other proposed projects. 11th Avenue, for example. Right now we're proposing a road diet along 11th Avenue. For anybody who lives there, what are your thoughts on this? Does that make sense? It definitely would slow folks down and make it more conducive as it kind of goes into the West Side Leadership Academy, which is our high school. 15th Avenue, another important east-west connection that goes mostly through the entire city, not contiguous, pretty solid. How about that? Maybe a complete street there, maybe considering recommending to GPTC bus service there, what that might look like. And then of course, improvements down at 21st Avenue. We'd like to see more things on the map, and we're hoping that those ideas will come from you, whether they're at the neighborhood level or whether it's your block, it's 3 blocks, or throughout the whole neighborhood. We would certainly like to have more projects and ideas or comments on the ideas that are already being put forward. Black Oak, a lot going on in Black Oak. Why? Yes, we have the potential, what was at the time of the comprehensive plan, the potential casino site, which is now the actual casino site and is under construction. Also, as you know, if you live in Black Oak, the east-west connection, there's a lot of green on the map. Definitely drainage and flooding challenges within the Black Oak neighborhood, and we're aware of those. But sometimes those offer opportunities, again, for the creation of trails as part of floodway control projects, because we have the Little Calumet River running through there. Again, it's a great thing to have it. It's beautiful. We have incredible diversity, but it also presents challenges. What additional things should we be thinking about when we think about Black Oak and even small farms, as you can see up to the northern part of the screen? And of course, there is Ridge Road along the south side, another natural east-west corridor that's been part of the city for a long time. Glenn Johnson was talking about this on our Community Advisory Committee meeting last week, and just the importance of Ridge Road. And what else can we do, and how do we think about envisioning Ridge Road? Glen Park, University Park neighborhoods. Again, we know Glen Park is a big place. There is West Glen Park and East Glen Park. They are different. They have different characteristics. University Park being the moniker given to that area around Indiana University Northwest and Ivy Tech. And thinking about this corridor, obviously we've got the Little Calumet up toward the north, as well as which parallels 8094. A variety of flood control projects have been done there over the years. Y'all know, if you've been down there, the levee system that keeps the floodplain in check, but also offers an opportunity for trail development into some really beautiful natural areas. The north-south corridor, again, of Broadway, the spine, if you will, of Gary, and the bus service that we have there, and all the wonderful initiatives and things being done by GPTC. You'll see the 2 arrows here on the screen have a connected dotted line. Another abandoned railroad corridor. Let me tell you, folks, we've got a lot of these in the city. Again, what do they serve? Can they serve us better? We've been developing relationships with the railroad and doing coordination with them in a way that we've never done before. The opportunities are there. Again, your thoughts on this. Is this something that appeals to you? And then seeing an existing resource like the Oak Savannah Trail, and you'll see that down in the southern part of the screen here, that is already existing, right? So how do we make sure that east-west trail, and then we've the east-west trail up at the north, and now we've got Broad down the middle. How do we make sure that these are better connected, again, for bicycle, pedestrians, and folks using transit? Just, again, these are the projects that are on the books, always interested in other ideas. Midtown Neighborhood, and we mentioned the Gary Elevate. The Gary Elevate project, as we'll talk more about, as I said, over the months, is just immediately north, adjacent to the Midtown Neighborhood. And if I didn't say it before, I'll say it now. Never before have we seen funding for trails like we are now. And never have we seen the amount of economic development that is coming from developed trail projects. 15 years ago, we just didn't talk about this that much. Now we have lots of regional trail projects throughout the country that are demonstrating their ability to put forward valuable economic development for communities, neighborhoods, homes next to trails. Okay, very attractive for folks who are already living there and who may want to live there in the future. So here we have, again, the 11th Avenue corridor, 15th Avenue corridor. And in this case, we also have Grant Street. We know that GPTC is doing a study on Grant Street and what kind of bus service can be added there or expanded there. Very robust, lots of businesses operating on Grant Street. Another great north-south connection just to the west of Broadway. Ambridge, Mann, and Horace, Mann, fantastic neighborhoods in the city, also historic, very stable. Again, we have Broadway and Massachusetts Street over on the right-hand side of the screen. We have the Marquette Trail along the northern part of the screen, but also Buchanan Street. These folks over at GSD who are managing stormwater got a great grant to do beautification and improvements throughout Buchanan Street. We'll be seeing the fruits of that labor here in the next 2 years. The Gary Methodist Hospital is an anchor. It's a destination for folks both to get there because they need services and because they work there. We have the absolutely lovely Horace Mann neighborhood, also historic neighborhood, incredible homes for anybody that's with us tonight that lives there, and an opportunity to continue that preservation as we move forward and re-envision also some of the schools that we have, school sites that we have. So as we think about areas in Horace Mann, Ambridge Mann, what else might we be thinking about? I can tell you one of the books, plans on the books is looking at 4th Avenue and 5th Avenue and how we might be able to turn those into two-way streets. Again, we had that in the comprehensive plan, and we applied for funding to do a safety study, and that has been funded and will be ongoing in the next 2 years, with the potential of 4th Avenue being the truck route and 5th Avenue being for cars and pedestrians and walking, right? Definitely a different use than the way we have it now, but something that very well may be doable. And we're looking forward to finding out more about that. Downtown in Emerson, again, Gary, we've got our Broadway corridor over the left. You can see here really where the Gary Elevate project comes in. You see that dotted line that dips off the Marquette Park. Okay, again, abandoned rail line coming in here. Great opportunity there to expand some of that and looking for more projects. How about more at the neighborhood level? How about the street level? How about intersections that could use improvements? Tolleston Small Farms, again, looking at that kind of 15th Avenue, we keep talking about that, 11th Avenue, Grant Street. Lots of great things going on in small farms, including some of the newer development in the last 20 years of homes in Gary. And again, potential sites for redevelopment and sites that are already attractions. Again, we think about destinations. Where do I need to go, or how do I need someone to get to me? Pulaskl, Marshalltown. Obviously, this is an interesting area too. It's over off of, I-65 is to the east there. Broadway being to the west, you have the Pulaskl neighborhood, and then Marshalltown. We know that over in Marshalltown, some great projects are going on. The Wild Indigo, Marshalltown Trails and Birding Project along the Little Calumet River with the Audubon Society. Deb, I know that's one that you've worked on as well. Did you want to say anything about this project? We'd like to see more projects on the map in Pulaskl and in Marshalltown. I know
certainly. I have one. I'm well aware of it though. This is a bond system. Folks in Gary and in Marshalltown in particular with regard to creating trails that eventually can connect into the Little Calumet River trail system for use in the neighborhood for walking, biking, and birding, because the Audubon Society that's funding this project, and there's a very active citizens in Marshalltown who are working on this. I believe the Urban League may be involved, others as well. I can point out as well on the abundance of parks and natural areas in these neighborhoods, Pulaskl and Marshalltown. That again, those potentially destinations that we want to connect via trails and walking paths and such. So lots of opportunity here, and we look forward to hearing from citizens in this neighborhood as to what they'd like to see.
Thank you, Deb. Appreciate it. And we're going to be walking through a little bit more of this later. Again, we're going to get through this presentation. We appreciate your patience. It's a lot to absorb, but it's good to talk about the good things and what we have now so we can talk about what else we need to be thinking about moving forward. And lastly, Aetna, Miller, Glen, Ryan neighborhoods, always a lot going on in this part of town. Obviously, the proximity to Lake Michigan, Marquette Park, beaches make it very popular. We have the South Shore, and obviously very excited about the double tracking project and the potential for having more goods and services around our South Shore station. Again, I keep thinking grocery stores, dry cleaners. What do we need here? But the improvements along Lake Street are something that's happened over the last couple of years. We'd like to see more of those throughout the city. Again, those were funded with stormwater funds to be able to fix some of the drainage problems. So you never know where these sources of funds will come from, and we want to capitalize on that. We also have the Gary Green Link was part of the Envisioned trail system, which is also the Marquette Trail. And then even getting into Aetna, looking at right now, there's a proposed road diet coming into Aetna. There's lots of streetscape in Aetna. How can that better be envisioned? What do the people of Aetna think? I know Penelope Love has been really active, and she's part of our CAC and really great about getting information out about our survey so that we can get more folks activated to give us their opinion. 1220 is an important east-west corridor. Clearly, there'll be changes there as the double track comes in, but also looking at that 12 and 20 corridor and how can we make that more pedestrian friendly as we connect these neighborhoods into downtown to make better connectivity for everybody. Okay, so why are you here tonight? So we just walked through a lot of that. We talked a lot about maps and projects, but really, this is all part of the community engagement process for the bicycle and pedestrian master plan. It's required as part of the grant, and it's good planning. And that's why you're here. For those of you who are joining us, we really appreciate it. As I mentioned, we do have a community advisory committee. They've been great and on board and will be helping us more as we move forward because we definitely need more information for our plan, again, so that we can go get funds to do actual work and improvements in the city of Gary. But we're going to talk about our survey, our Google Class, and other ways that you can help us and tell other people how they can help us, even if they're not on the phone or on Facebook. So we developed our community bicycle and pedestrian survey. This is a great way. It's very easy to give us basic information on the obstacles and the challenges, also the destinations and the places you'd like to go. So we have, it's very easy to use. It is online. Here is the address. But for folks that aren't online or maybe aren't as tech savvy or just prefer to do it another way, we have other ways to reach you so that you can help take the survey too. We do have a paper version and we have ways to be able to get to you to provide your input. But for those who are able, we ask that you please consider taking the survey. Tell other people to take the survey. The more information that we have and the more we can hear from people, the better we are. And again, there are various parts of the survey. We kind of talk about obstacles and challenges, but there's also an interactive map where you can say, hey, you got it all wrong. I want to go here. Or this is where my concern is, or you didn't talk about this. Can contribute in that way. And it's important that we hear from folks. And here's why. So a little bit about the results so far. We've had about 478, that was as of a couple of days ago, fully completed surveys. And we really appreciate those folks that took the time to go all the way to the survey and complete it. We've had 400 participants. So we've had folks get on here and take parts of it. Look, whether you take the whole thing, you do part of it, all of it matters. We're counting all of the information as it comes in. So all of the surveys matter. And some of this is validating what we already knew, and some of it's telling us new things, right? But we do so far getting statistics on, like, so far a lot of people who have taken the survey do own a car and a bike, and they use both. Folks that use transit find it convenient. Some people say they don't. Good information. Maybe the top 3 reasons for transit use, 64 people so far have said they don't use it at all. And, there's a feature that allows you to provide more information. And the question would be, well, why? Is it just not convenient? Can you not get there? Is it dark? Is the sidewalk not good? Or you just don't use transit? A lot of people do, whether it's for leisure or to get to school or to work. So these are nice. This is great information that comes back to us. You can see at the bottom of the screen, just interested in the demographics of households. We have diverse households in the neighborhood, in the city of Gary here. We have multi-generational households. And so again, we're thinking about all users. We're thinking about kids, we're thinking about working folks, and we're thinking about senior citizens, folks with disabilities. Again, all users for everybody. And so those demographics really help tell us about our households in the city of Gary. But what I really want to orient you to is the map. Again, thank you, Deb, for helping create this map with the information that we have. What we have tried to do here, because we're collecting information at the zip code level, that's kind of a natural way that we collect data, but also looking at our city council district and doing that overlay. And what you see here in orange is so far where we have completed surveys. And you see some zeros on the map. We don't want zeros. We definitely don't want zeros. We want to hear from more folks. We've gotten a good response out of the first district in 46403. Always looking for more. We appreciate that participation. But we also want to hear from other parts of the city in all of the districts. And so that we can make sure that we're representing your needs, your street, your neighborhood. Really, really, really important. So we're pushing the survey and hope that you will as well. Other things that are coming out of the city, out of the survey, we have 8 obstacles that are on the survey. And again, they validate and they tell us more. Are these an obstacle for you, your household, your family? Are the lack of sidewalks or the condition of the sidewalks an issue? How about your safety? How about lighting? How about key intersections? Safe routes to school. You may not even have children, but maybe you live in a neighborhood with schools and you have observations. Distance to your destination. Where are you trying to go? Can you get there? How long does it take you to get there? Is this an issue? Rather than have us assume, we want to hear from you. And all of these comments are being taken under advisement. And clearly you can see the things that are coming up. Yes, we need to fix sidewalks. As much as we need to build trails, we need to fix sidewalks. We need more lighting. As I like to say, we need to turn the lights on in the city. And there's definitely an initiative to do so. How can we point that out as a need so that we can go get funding to do more with our lights? And just a lack of signage for trails and bus routes, and even reckless driving has been cited. So again, that need to slow people down. Complete streets and road diets help do that. Barriers, again, that have been identified by folks. Again, some of these are repetitive. You've heard these, but how about insufficient means of transportation for handicap and elderly folks? Again, all users. How about your neighbor? How about your household? How about people you know? Okay, how are they getting around? We want to hear more about this and how we can make that better as well. And are there recommendations that you would make for GPTC? We're happy to entertain those and make sure they get passed along to the powers that be and to see what else we might be able to do. And again, we translate this information into charts and graphics that are easy to use. And not everybody feels the same way, but you can see people don't walk or don't bike in the city for a reason. And it's good to tell us why. And I guess how difficult is it? For some folks, they say, oh, I'm good. I get around just fine. Other people say, no way, this is really difficult. And sometimes it depends on where you live or where you're trying to go, right? And so the more information, the better. I told you we had a mapping feature in our survey. I just wanted to give the next couple of slides, give you a sense of how we're using that information. These are destinations that you walk and bike to, okay? And so what you've put into the survey for those that have taken are what's popping up on this map. And we'd like to see more dots on the map, okay, throughout the entire city. Tell us where you want to go. Tell us where you do go. And how about work and school and other services? We'd like to hear more about that as well. So we're hoping to get some of that out of the survey. Again, areas that need improvement. If you identify it, then maybe we can prioritize it, okay? So another great reason to take the survey and the locations identified. And look at this. Are we saying that there are no areas that need improvement in Ambridge, Mann, or Horace, Mann, or Glen Park, East or West, or Tolleston? Certainly we've got more and we can get more input and feedback from folks throughout the city for all kinds of improvements. And lastly, safety concerns. Again, that idea is if you tell us, we can put it on the map and we can identify it. Maybe we can prioritize it. And again, traffic speeds, intersections, lights being out, we hear about these, but again, the more information we have, the better. And one of the things that the survey is doing for us is trying to say, hey, what can the city do? The city can't do everything, but they can do a lot. And then the more we can prioritize and get funds, the more things can get fixed or changed. And so this is where we're kind of culminating much of what we're hearing. And go to other partners too. This allows us to go to the state, to feds, to nonprofits and say, we have a need, help us do something about it. Okay, so I want to move on to real quick, a couple of other, and I'm almost done for those of you who are hanging in there with me. Really cool outreach tool. And I want to thank Jesse Renslow and Gretchen Sipp for pulling this together. And this is, it's a Google class that was developed as part of this project. You could get input and engage kids in the city and throughout the township, right, as well, about planning in general and why involving themselves in planning and involving themselves in civic duties can bring a change to community. And it's a great way to provide input. Some of us, we do transportation planning and we try to solve immediate problems, but to be honest with you, most of what we do is long range. And at this point, it really is for the kids that live in the city or will live in the city. So created this class. It's a great way to engage 4th through 12th graders, although anybody can take it. So I would encourage anybody who wants to take the class to take the class, and allows the youth to make a contribution to what we're doing here. And it's fantastic. It's hosted by a local high school student, Gretchen Sipp's daughter, who's very engaging and is in the Gary school system and is trying to entice children about what it means to them. So she kind of leads folks through this. And the class's final project is to redesign a block in Gary. So maybe it's your block. Have kids on your block, maybe they could do that too. And that would be great. The class is available. There's 2 ways. I put both of them on the screen. I'm going to talk more about how you can get to this. You have to have a Gmail account. Okay, that's Google Mail, email to participate. Easy to do, free. You don't have to pay for any of it. And it might be a good way to engage kids. So a lot of folks are home. A lot of folks are home with their kids. A lot of teachers and parents are looking for extracurricular or ways to keep them busy. this may be a great way, particularly as we come into winter, right? And over the holiday season, and we will make sure that the feedback that we get from these kids, that we acknowledge that and we get it in our plan, and we acknowledge all of those kids and anybody else who took the class. Great opportunity, and hoping to get more feedback because we'd like to do more of this in planning throughout the city. It's really great stuff. I've done this for years, and this is a first for me, so I'm excited about it. So other engagement tools. So, how do you help us? Tell us your feedback. Say, hey, I've got some comments on that map, or I want to tell you what's wrong with the trail, or I want to tell you where I want you to put in a bike lane. We do have a project website, www.reinvestingary.org. And there's a snapshot of it right here on the screen. Okay, this is what's up on the page right now. It's our forum for this evening. But you can also see across the top, there's a button for the survey. There's a button for the Google class. Other ways to get involved. Background documents are up here. All of the maps. The presentation will be up here. Okay, and available to you. We also have email. We have a dedicated email for the project. This is a preferred method of communication just because it lets us keep track of all of the interest and keeps a record of it. And it's just easy to use. A lot of folks find that they can use email these days. We do have Deb, who is the project manager with us today, and with the Gary Redevelopment Department. And this is the number for the Gary Redevelopment Department. So for those folks who may not feel comfortable with some of the social media tools or the website, obviously can give Deb a call, and she will find a way to make sure you get the information that you need to help participate. And we have social media channels, very popular, have been used a lot. Again, Gretchen and Jesse and the city of Gary have been helping us with this. We are on Facebook. I guess we're on Facebook right now. And on Instagram as well, where we put out information and you can provide comments and participate in what we are doing. And lastly, I bring you back to the survey, to our schedule, so you can see what's next. Over the next 2 months, we're going to be collecting a lot more information, hopefully from all of you. We are doing a series of interviews. We have our CAC, we're collecting lots of data, but we'll come back and have the second public information forum, probably in February, once we've really gotten all that feedback pulled together. And then we'll tell you what we've heard, what we heard from you, how we're using it in the plan, what information we still need. And then the idea is that we'll pull this into a robust plan that we can present for folks and that everyone can use within the city to look for more funding opportunities, and then eventually go to the Gary Common Council for adoption, probably in April. Hoping we can keep that timeline, but it gives you a sense of where you fit in. You can see that there's this public information forum, the next one, and there will also be a public hearing. Okay, Wendy has talked for about 40 minutes. I got through 43 slides in 40 minutes. Very proud of that. I know it's a lot of information to absorb, but curious about our chat feature, and if anybody has put any questions or comments into the chat feature that we might be able to speak to. Deb, can you see those in the event that there are any?
Yes, I can see them from Zoom. And Gretchen has answered a few of those questions already. Gretchen, can you take a look on Facebook and let us know if we've got some questions, burning questions there on either Reinvest in Gary or Reimagine Gary?
Great, thank you.
I can point out Reagan Hall is spoke and he passed on survey to her and she took the survey immediately. So
great.
Her
give me 1 second. Sorry. All right, can you hear me?
Indicated, for many of the sidewalks, it's a matter of cleaning them up. The overgrowth really inexpensive. So
there was a question about the project that you on 11th. They wanted to know what was that 11th Avenue project.
Right now, the 11th proposed project along 11th is a road diet. Again, taking the travel lanes that we have and reducing those, maybe adding in a bike lane or a bike path could involve in lighting. It would slow down traffic and definitely make it safer, but that's just the proposal on the table that's envisioned for 11th. If there are other thoughts or ideas, we would love to hear those. And that's in various neighborhoods. 11th Avenue is a long street.
Right. And then one more, I remember David Wright mentioning something about projects going down Broadway. One of the questions was, of course, is there any plan to include the rest of the city? And it was a resident that's a part of Midtown, and they have to use, they have to drive their bike to Maryville to use the trail. And so just talking about trail usage in that Midtown area.
Sure. So the idea would be, number one, GPTC, as we know, does have bicycle racks on the buses. And so David Wright and the folks at GPTC are very cognizant of how do you expand bus service that also facilitates bicycle and pedestrian. So it's something on everyone's mind. In terms of some of the trails, the idea here is to build more trails in the city of Gary or connect to the trails that we already have. Like we talked about the Oak Savannah Trail. We also talked about some of the regional trails, right? Like in Portage and Maribel, Hobart, some really great trails there. Also completing the Marquette Trail, which is the east-west trail to the north along the Calumet, all right? So that would become another contiguous trail. And then there are other opportunities for trails moving forward, and would love to hear comments more about the trails we're proposing, or do you like trails? Do you like the idea of more trails going forward? And can always be able to connect with folks to answer more questions about specific projects as we go forward. Thank you, Gretchen, I appreciate that. Are you seeing anything else? Or Deb, do you see anything else that might be of interest to folks?
Yeah, there was one more. Deb, I think, talked about it a little bit from Facebook, asking about the project with Grand Boulevard. What was that timeline? They were asking basically, when would that, be looking to be started? What was that timeline? I remember you mentioned it just a little bit.
Sure. So because we didn't get everything finished up, we're going to start some additional community engagement on that, starting probably in February. And then we've got to wait before we can put the paint down until the temperatures get to about 60 degrees. So we anticipate beginning the painting and restriping probably late April to May. And then basically having celebrate, and ideally we're going to try and see if we can't get the mayor to do some rides with groups of people to just try it out and make sure it works and see how people like it. So in the spring, largely.
Yeah, we do. We're getting into winter, and as with all kinds of construction projects, we won't be able to do as much in winter because the paint doesn't stick, literally. That's why we also don't repave in the winter, because here it gets too cold. And so we've been lucky with the weather, but we are moving into winter, so we may see some things pause and pick them back up in the spring when things warm up. And again, the idea of tactical urbanism, a project like what we see on the screen, can be used anywhere in the city. It's a great way to say, hey, we've got an idea. Do we think it's good? Do we think it'll work? And there's definitely money out there to see if we can try to do that in other parts of the city. So if you're part of town, your street, your boulevard, neighborhood, give some thought to that. And do you have a project or idea that maybe would be well suited for a grant that might be able to be pursued?
And then one more, just asking about I want to say the Greenway, or is it the Green Link? Does it connect in Highland? And I remember us talking at one point about the interconnectedness of cities through the trails.
Sure. So, again, I put back up the Greenways, Blueways map from the Northwest Indiana Regional Plan Commission. And look, we can zoom in on some of these things as we do our work, and we have been. Again, connectivity. How do we expand the trails we have to connect to other trails? And it's a huge part of the regional initiative, and that includes the Gary Green Link, okay? That includes the Marquette Trail. That includes Gary Elevate, which is just kind of say, another turn in the Marquette Trail. And maybe there are others, but connectivity into Highland. Griffith has a fantastic trail system. Again, you can see on the map in front of you, Hobart, Portage, again, a lot of times using abandoned rail line. How do we have more connectivity? And we'll be looking more to that. But if you take the survey, in case you haven't already, you can tell us that, yes. And so that we can make sure that we're prioritizing, and as we go out and talk to community partners, hey, how can we make that happen? As I said, we have a fantastic initiative on the Marquette Trail, the National Park Service, partners throughout Northwest Indiana who are committed to making it happen. Great energy on that, great opportunity, and hopefully funding as well.
Yeah. As you can see on the map too, the purple lines are existing trails, and they're in place right now. The Oak Savannah that was pointed out in one of the one of the neighborhoods exists at the moment, and we're envisioning, let's try to get Broadway fixed up as complete streets, or Massachusetts as bike lanes. You'd be able to go all through the entire city, north-south, to get down to the Oak Savannah, and then head right over to into Highland.
Absolutely.
And similarly with Griffith, the little Cal Trail that you saw in the middle of that regional system, and we've alluded to and go through some of the neighborhoods. When that becomes completely finished, there are some gaps in it. Nice east into Griffith and elsewhere.
Awesome. Again, connectivity, pieces, taking pieces and making them whole. Using existing resources as much as possible because it's cheaper, it's easier to do, and it can be done in short order. There are also larger projects, again, like the Elevate, which will take longer. That's okay. We need projects for today, and we need projects for tomorrow. We need projects at the neighborhood level and at the regional level. Again, this gives us an opportunity to really shine a light on why that's important. And again, recreation is hugely important. Public health is important, but so is going to work or school, right? All of it matters. And, I know that we've got folks on the phone, and again, Gary Housing Authority, incredible plans. How do we, partner and make sure that those plans are thought of here, okay? And they're part of our community advisory committee, and other initiatives throughout the city. The idea here is to bring everybody together and not work independently, but work collectively. Not work harder, work smarter. Anything else on the chat, or anything that we'd like to, talk about? I'm sure we'll get more. It's not all about this moment or today. We have the next couple of months, and obviously the ability to provide this to folks. We know that we're engaging the block clubs, which ought to be really helpful at the neighborhood level. Hope to have more participation by members of the Gary Common Council. We know how much they care about their neighborhoods. There's been a lot going on, but time will hopefully free up here over the winter and be able to be more engaged, or talk to your Common Council member about what you would like, and so they can communicate back to us. But I'm sure that they would be interested in your thoughts as well. Any other thoughts? Again, we'll come back. Anything you put in the chat, anything on Facebook Live, again, shameless plug, take the survey, please. Very valuable, helpful to us. Please make these numbers on the map change. No zeros. More input. Google Class, get the kids involved, right? Make it worthwhile. And definitely thank you to everybody who's been participating, everybody who's with us this evening, everybody who will be watching this recorded and seeing the conversation that we had here this evening. We look forward to more of them. It's great to be here virtually. I will say I kind of miss the public forums though, as well, where we can look at maps and touch things and talk about them, but we're just not able to do that right now. So, but we will do our best to accommodate everybody to their skill set and level and what is best for them, so that we can reach as many people throughout the entire city as possible. Deb, did you have any final thoughts or comments, or Gretchen, any final things coming through Facebook Live? Happy to stay on the line. Happy to, I know we have a few people on Zoom if we want to talk a little bit, however you'd like to move forward.
Just
Thanks for everybody who's joined us today.
yeah.
I just want to thank you today and remind you that a lot of information, and you'll be able to see much of this information or all of this information through, if you want to rewatch the video, or we'll provide the maps so you can pull the map of your neighborhood and really begin to get together with your neighbors and talk about it to provide feedback. So our hope is basically you have a good enough sense for what the comprehensive plan kind of envisioned, where we've gotten feedback thus far from our survey, and you can add your ideas to that or substantiate others' ideas. So I hope that this session kind of got your brains thinking and your imagination growing to what we can do to reimagine Gary with regard to bike and pedestrianness and here healthier communities because of the opportunity for bike and ped.
Great. Gretchen, any final thoughts? I know you're manning Facebook for us there and an important part of our team. Would love to hear any final thoughts from you as well.
I think I just want to, just reiterate, if people could definitely share the survey. The survey links are placed under each live that is being shared. It is also on the City of Gary Reimagine Gary page and the Reinvest in Gary page. If you would like any specific maps or anything like that, definitely follow up with us via email at reinvestinggary at gmail.com or at Gmail. Yep, at gmail.com. And definitely encourage, if you know young people or older people, or you just have time during the holiday and want to do something fun, you can watch some amazing interviews and learn all about the planning process and how this all works together. There are some amazing interviews with some, I call them community superheroes, that work behind the scenes to really pull together the logistics and transportation and modalities of our city. And my daughter gets to interview them. And so she really talks about it from a young person's perspective. Really great interviews, something fun to do. And just as many people as you can get to share this, that would be great. So.
Thank you so much, Gretchen. I really appreciate it. And I do want to thank, Jose from the Gary Housing Authority. We appreciate your participation on the Community Advisory Committee and all the work that you do and your personal interest in bike ped. You've got some great experience and we love your enthusiasm. We need more of it. People in the city of Gary deserve great bicycle and pedestrian, just like everybody, for all kinds of reasons. And why shouldn't we have more? So let's get more. And let's get more funding to do good things. Glen Johnson, thank you as well. You're a part of our Community Advisory Committee and you've been great and I really appreciate it. Just want to give a shout out to those folks I can see and very much look forward to working with all of you and then some to see what we can do. And it's exciting. And if we envision it, if we plan for it, if we put it out there, we'll get somewhere. And this is a really important part of the project. So, and for everybody on Facebook Live, we certainly appreciate you participating and look forward to hearing from you as well. So, with that, I will wish everybody a fantastic evening, a safe holiday season. Be safe and be well. And we look forward to hearing more from all of you in the future.